So, first things first. What is the difference between an interim dean and a permanent dean? What's the difference of responsibility there?
Well,
if any.
Yeah. I don't know that there's a difference in responsibility. The way I have approached it is I'm going to do everything I can that I believe a dean should do. And so I'm jumping in, with all of my attention and all of my focus. And so an interim dean, from my perspective, having been a department chair and a faculty member, is a position that it can be a dean that fills in during a time of transition. And if all goes well, then that dean, that interim dean, can eventually be possibly the dean of the college without the interim title. And sometimes there are different conditions of job searching and that sort of thing for the ultimate position. But it's really a person, I kind of look at it as a trial period. And so I've taken the responsibility as I'm going to do everything that I think a dean should do. And hopefully the community likes me, the community internally, as well as the senior executive administration and leadership of the university.
And what are the short-term goals to ensure that everyone does
Yeah. So remember now, I've only been in the position a very short period of time. But I will tell you, I've been here for 19 years. And so I believe in the university. I've worked under and with wonderful deans and administrators. And so I feel like I've been part of living that, that direction of the university as well as the College of Business. And so I have a working draft vision statement that I'd like to reference just a little bit, just for guidance. I really believe that it's our responsibility as a university and a college to really think about, understand, and build new knowledge. And in particular in the College of Business, advance business knowledge. Learn, study, teach new things. So we'll go to our books that are based on knowledge that has been created and then assembled, and then we have the fundamental elements of a discipline, a business discipline, and we'll teach that in the classroom. But what we also have a responsibility to do is to advance knowledge and learn about new knowledge, and then bring that into our classroom and to our students, so that our students aren't just learning about what good business practices exist. They're learning about what's going to exist through the eyes and the work of our faculty members, staff many times, and the students themselves, because we engage in high impact practices that bring students and our industry and community partners together along with our faculty for class projects and research that students really get involved with. So that helps to create this new knowledge. So I think new knowledge is important. Right. Quality and impactful teaching and learning. I think it goes hand in hand with this new knowledge. So I described the high impact learning opportunities that our faculty work with our students and industry and our community to get, to define whether it's data collection or whether it's taking part in events and then helping companies learn from those events and learn from data. I think that helps to create this this learning setting and environment that creates a quality beyond just the classroom. And I think students like that. In my 19 years, my students loved going out into industry and loved going to competitions and love when industry come in. And when they can be part of a project that's discovering something and the company goes, wow, we're going to use that, whether it's the Lewis Bear distributing company, beverage distributing company in town, who is the family that has named our College of Business. A project with them maybe in inventory analysis of some of their product lines, or whether it's Comic-Con. I think it's called Comic-Con? Pensacon, thank you, where our faculty and students go out there and they interview people. Why do you come to Pensacon? What's Pensacon about? Why is there a culture, right, of Pensacon? So we're discovering this new knowledge and trying to make impactful teaching. Relevant and influential research and then highly meaningful service. So the relevant research and meaningful research. So I had an interview with a couple of our faculty members a couple of days ago. We featured them in what we call the Dean's List, which is our new weekly spotlight of faculty, staff, students, and alum, and maybe some business constituents as well. And we focused on how their research could be applicable to managers. And one of the things that they discovered in their research, this is Tim McElveen and Maggie Davis, what they discovered in their research was that people that are working from home, they're remote workers, they're high achievers, they're very conscientious workers and so forth, many times they overachieve because maybe they're not getting feedback that they would normally get in an office setting where the boss says, hey, good job on that. Hey, you're working too much overtime. Take off the evening. Make sure you go home and do things with your family this weekend, and you don't do too much work for the office. And they miss those cues when they're working at home remotely in their own place, and so they find themselves feeling like they need to work more and work harder. So you have these high-performing workforce trying to work harder, and they begin to burn themselves out. And they use the term workaholism. They kind of become workaholics. And so they're saying managers need to find ways to provide cues, roadmaps, signs, expectations for these remote workers and say, yes, I need a briefing on this subject. Will you provide me a one-page executive summary? Whereas if you didn't give that specific directive, that high-performing, high-achieving person may go, well, I better give them the full project, and let me give them a 5-page versus a 1-page executive summary. So that's meaningful research that helps to preserve high performers that are in these remote types of positions. And so that was interesting to me. They related it to a story of if you're going on a hike down a trail in the mountains or something, if you have no well-walked path in front of you, or you have no signs that say take this turn for the 1-mile loop or go straight for the 2-mile loop, and instead you just start walking through the forest without any trail or any road signs, trail signs, then it's going to be much more difficult and more stressful than if you did have those road signs. And I thought that's a good way of looking at it. Now, meaningful service to our communities, and I say communities because we have our industry partners in communities. We have our civic communities. We have our other stakeholders and other communities that we are either affiliated with or friends with. And we want to connect with them in ways that help them be better and help advance their mission as well as the mission of the university. So that type of service, let's say it kind of overlaps with research and teaching. What if we were able to come up with ways that our classroom could be in the community and help a small business with a marketing plan? I know that some of our faculty in our marketing program are working on real marketing plans with small businesses in our Pensacola community, and their class is taking on that project. So that's helping provide service to our community that's really meaningful. It's really tangible. It helps the student because they can put that on their resume. They get connected with industry, and when they do that, it naturally helps them launch their careers, and it helps our community.
So you mentioned events briefly there. What's sort of the current status of student-led or student-organized, student group-organized events, and is there any plans to sort of take that in a different direction, build upon it? Is there too much student events?
No, you can't have too many student events. We are students. The university, right? We exist because of our students, and so the more meaningful events, right? And when I say meaningful, it's like, okay, what's the goal of the event, and how does that benefit that student? How does it really help that student improve their current life as a student, or their life as they graduate and begin to launch their career? And so it's been my experience in leading, being the faculty advisor for our Supply Chain Logistics Association, a student organization and group. We've done events such as a meet and greet type of event once a semester, and through the years it could have been at the end of the year, and it was more of a larger banquet. We've done everything from sit-down banquets and honoring our industry partners and honoring our students and so forth, achievements in that group. And then it's also evolved through the years because it's student-led. It's evolved into many times meet and greets with industry. We still celebrate, and I think that's the big thing here. We still celebrate our students. We celebrate our student accomplishments. We celebrate our students' learning. We also, it's a great connection with, we celebrate our faculty, because as our students help our faculty, as our faculty help our students accomplish, our faculty naturally find that those are their own accomplishments as well. So when I think of my experience with student events, I look at it and I go, that's something special that we've always done that, again, goes beyond the classroom. And so I think we have this week it may be next week with Dr. White, there is a Meet the Firms. And so that's a really important event. And there's another event downtown with celebrating tenure and promotion of our faculty. That's a really important event. Our students engage in our job fairs. And so, to me, that's an event for students.
Are there any upcoming job fairs?
We do have some upcoming.
Meet the Firm, is a career fair, so that counts, and that'll be next Thursday.
Okay.
But yes, I'll get that for you.
Perfect.
Yeah.
talk a lot about valuing students and faculty. Has
Yeah.
there been any feedback downward coming up about the recent change of the deans?
You mean feedback from students or faculty or anything? Naturally, changes bring about questions. Our provost has been wonderful at setting up meetings with our faculty and staff, and I was also at that meeting, and really, I actually wrote down my comments before I delivered them at that meeting, and at the end of my comments, it had a lot to do with kind of the vision that I've just shared with you. But at the end of the comments, I actually gave them a pledge. I actually said, I pledge to do the very best that I can do. And I pledge to be positive and really uphold the positive nature of the college. And so I really want to set that as something that I always think about every day. Things are hard. Things are tough, right? When you have business deadlines and when you have lots of events and meetings and so forth. So it can kind of make you feel like, oh, I got a lot of pressure to meet all of these deadlines and all. But I think at the end of the day, a wise person told me one time, at the end of the day, if you know that you've given it your best, then you can go to sleep and go, I'll do it again tomorrow. And that, to me, is how I'm approaching this. The feedback from faculty, honestly, has been amazing. But the faculty know me. I've been here 19 years. This is my 20th year, right? I'm already in the set of it. They know the work that I've done in building a standalone supply chain management degree here. They know the work that my students have done in achieving recognition in winning national competitions, placing in national competitions. They see the jobs that they get, and they know that I'm right there working with them to do so. And so I don't think that the faculty, I don't think that they're concerned with me. I think they look at it and they go, we know what he's done, and hopefully I bring a level of confidence, in what I've been able to accomplish. I also, remember, I've been a faculty member longer than I've been an administrator. I was a chair of the Department of Commerce. But again, I know what the faculty demands are. I know what motivates faculty. I know the importance of the student-faculty exchange. So I know students better than I know administration. And so I think that those are strengths. And so the faculty will see that. In fact, the Dean's List, which is our communication once a week, that is going to focus on faculty, staff, students, and our community partners. And so we are going to, and we've already started this, we've done 2 interviews already, where we are shining the spotlight on their accomplishments. So the one that I mentioned, Dr. McElvey and Dr. Maggie Davis, that was to show their accomplishments. And the next one will be spotlighting a person. I don't want to give it away because it comes out next week, but a person who really finds purpose in community engagement. And this person is in the perfect position because it requires that, and they're good at it. So we want to spotlight that. And then we have another one down the line where we're going to bring several staff members in and talk about their successes as new staff members. They've been with us now for about a year, and see how things are going with them. So we really want to focus on their accomplishments.
So looking top down, is there any sort of changes or philosophy or things that the provost wants to see from you moving forward? I know it's early, but
Yeah, changes. I'm not so much sure of. I think that the provost understands my strengths, and I've mentioned a few of those. Right, my focus has been as a faculty member to help students get connected with industry to launch great careers. As dean, that focus still exists, and then some. Right, it has to even branch out further. But the provost is very well aware of the things that I have accomplished that illustrate characteristics, my character, my skill set in communicating with colleagues and students and faculty inside and outside the university. And so I think that they expect me to do more of that, to build more relationships, to be visible internally and externally. I have industry background early in the 1980s, 1990s, and then I began my academic career after serving as a frontline supervisor over a longshoreman union out in Long Beach, California. That was really good experience in a short period of time. I was just out of getting my undergraduate degree and found myself walking on with the company out there. But then, fast forward after my master's degree, I worked as a customer service and transportation manager for the largest Southeast distributor of Procter & Gamble products, Johnson & Johnson products, all of the candy company products through the Southeast. So we were a public warehouse, but we were an extremely large operation, and all of the major manufacturers of packaged goods used our services to distribute to all of the households throughout the Southeast U.S. So I had that frontline experience in a kind of a merchant marine port environment as well as large-scale warehousing and trucking environment. And then I went back to get my doctorate degree, started as a student in 1994. Fast forward, graduated in 1998. I was fortunate enough to be hired by Penn State University to teach in their logistics program, and then Michigan State said, well, if he's good enough for Penn State, he's good enough for us. And so they hired me on as faculty for their logistics and supply chain programs. So the provost knows that I can bring along my industry experience and ability to work with, collaborate, talk with industry, as well as my academic experience. When I was at Michigan State University, I taught large class sizes, 680 students in one classroom setting. And I taught one class a semester, and then I focused on research. So, but my research was connected with industry. It was connected with the rail car inventory operation for Dow Chemical to figure out, gosh, we don't really have a handle on the productivity of our rail cars. Can Michigan State help us figure that out? And so that was one project. Another project was with Kimberly-Clark and how Kimberly-Clark and Kellogg may have been part of that as well, how they would fulfill Walmart's mandate of putting a radio frequency identification tag on every unit of product that they sold, that these companies sold to Walmart. Walmart said to their top 100 suppliers, you have to do this. And their top 100 suppliers said, what's that going to do to us? What's that going to do to our supply chain lead time in filling orders? How is that going to add to cost? What internal production processes are we going to have to change to make that happen? And so I was one of the academics that were assigned to that project, and we evaluated the end result of what if these RFID tags were put on these products at the production phase, or if we moved the product all the way to the distribution center before it went to Walmart and added the tags on there. What would the cost be? What would the process be, and so forth? So it's real world research.
Is there student involvement?
Oh, absolutely, yeah. Well, we brought them along, graduate students as well as undergraduate students, and then they would help us do the data analysis, and they would help us come up with the results. And so, the provost knows that I have a strong research background, a strong research ethic, and involving students in these projects. I have a project right now with a student, and we're basically looking at how do you quantify a new logistics decision, a supply chain decision. So if you decide to add inventory because you don't want to stock out. In other words, when you get an order, you don't want to not have enough inventory to satisfy that wholesaler or retailer's order. So what could we do? Well, we could build a whole bunch of inventory and hang on to it just in case they order more than what we have forecast. Okay, we could do that. But there's a cost to that, right? And so we are evaluating the overall return on assets and how we evaluate logistics and supply chain changes for a company and how those changes would play out in the most prominent corporate financials and ratios that help CFOs and CEOs guide the strategy of the company. That has not always been the case with the logistics operation. It used to be warehousing, you just support marketing and production. And marketing and production in the firm was the most important thing, not logistics operations or supply chain operations. Well, after the pandemic, people started realizing the people that are managing the flow of food, paper products, water that we consume in our homes, that's a really important job, because now I go to the shelves and they're empty. And so then when the shelves do fill up, what do? You buy every bit of it that you can because you don't know if it's going to be there again next week. So supply chain management really has risen in prominence in corporations. They now know that that's important. And so our students need to be involved in that type of research. But it's not just supply chain. It's accounting and finance, because you can't do supply chain without being able to put the numbers to it. Human resource. How do you, my first example of how do you help those that work from home not become workaholics and help them enjoy their jobs, and also those that are coming to the workplace. How do you support them? So we've got to have human resource development. We've got to have the fundamentals of finance and marketing and so forth. So we're trying to connect students with industry through our high impact practices, through our classroom and the value that we're creating there. But also we can do that through research. And my experience has been doing some of that. And I think that the provost has confidence that he's willing to see how well I can do at the dean's level in continuing that.
Research, life practice. Now, as far as curriculums go, is there any sort of vision to make changes there, or would it be particular or sweeping?
Sure. So So I've been fortunate to have had some experience, right? So I had some experience in building our supply chain standalone degree. So I began to understand that you can't just create a whole bunch of classes and hope that students will want them.
Sorry,
Yeah.
really quick.
Sure.
How does that work, creating all?
What's that?
Creating a whole degree program, how does that work? Is that...
One little bitty step at a time. So I came in, Dr. Dean Ed Ranelli. He is emeritus dean now for our college. His picture's hanging on the wall out there as you walk past. Take a look on the wall. I look at it every night I go home. I look at his and Dean O'Keefe's picture on the wall, and I look at him and I go, all right, I did my best again. I'll see you in the morning, you know. And so Dean Ranelli hired me to start a program here. So I came from Michigan State down here to start a program. We just started with 2 courses. I brought my best course in logistics from Penn State and my best course from transportation from Michigan State that I was teaching at those 2 schools at one time. And they allowed me to start those 2 courses here, teaching those 2 courses. And that was the beginning. And then I was out on the Cannon Greens and I was saying, you need to come and take my course, and come take my course. And we started a supply chain student association, and I would take them into the chemical plant up here. I would take them into the GE plant. We'd take them down to the port here and the one in Mobile. We'd take them to Louis Bear's distributing plant here in town, and they would get to see the inner workings and logistics of all of those. And so students started going, hey, why don't you come and take this course with me, to their friends. And so it really grew well. Then I took students to a competition that I had been taking Michigan State students to. And we went to that competition, and then it was called, I called it the Denver competition. It was called Operation Stimulus, Operation Stimulus. And the reason behind the name basically is that the gentleman that began it, he began it in the winter months because he felt like he wanted to encourage discovery and education and stimulate our brains at a time in the season where he thought that, you know, it lacked in the winter months. And so Operation Stimulus. And so normally it was in January and February in Denver. And it's been going on for, goodness, I've been here 19 years and I took students from Michigan State. I think I started taking students to that competition the second year that it was operating. Well, in any case, fast forward, and our teams from UWF have won that competition. We have placed in the top 3 positions multiple times, and we're the all-time school that has placed in the top 3 positions. And so it worked for me. So when you get that kind of momentum and enthusiasm among your students, then you go, let's add another course. So we added another course, and the students signed up for it. So eventually, you go to your dean, your associate deans, your chairs, department chairs, and you say, this really has a lot of enthusiasm from students. I've got a lot of enthusiasm, and if we added another person to help teach it, we could start this as a standalone program. And so normally they'll say, okay, you're showing some really great progress. What if we take the existing marketing major and we create a supply chain logistics specialization under that major? And so you go, okay, so we started doing that. And then that specialization started gaining momentum with student enrollment. So when you begin to show success after success, and as it grows, you're making the case right there that the demand exists. And then when you couple that with our students have nearly 100% job placement when they graduate, yeah, all of a sudden you get the eyes of the external partners that you have, and they go, this is a great program. So then you bring them all together and you kind of forecast out what you believe the data is showing you as far as enrollment goes, and you make a proposal internally. And then the deans and chairs look at it, and they say, this looks like it has promise. And then you have to go through the technical pre-proposal stages, which inform the executive leadership of the university, and eventually it informs the Board of Governors and the Board of Trustees of our university. And then there's a bigger, if it passes that phase, then there is a bigger full-blown proposal that has to go through. And at that point, there are eyes on it from other state university colleges that will give their input. Is there a need for it? Does it cannibalize anything? And that's kind of how it works. So it's a long process, and you have to have somebody that's the champion, their heart's in it, because that begins to rub off on their colleagues and on their students, and that's how you kind of build that momentum. So looking at our programs, we want to identify those programs that are in some stage of momentum that I've just described, and we want to look at those, and we want to say which have the promise of standing on their own, which ones are doing great, and we need to keep fostering what they're doing now. And really, that's, to me, what my job is now, is to go and fact find before you go sweeping changes and things like that. I'm good at fact finding and making a case, and then trying to energize people to get on board, and let's make this positive change and support what we're doing great at. And then if we can find ways to expand what we're doing great at, that's kind of like finding new knowledge or discovering new knowledge. That's just even a greater step forward. Does that help?
Yeah, absolutely. Last few questions.
Sure.
Is there anything carrying over maybe from the previous administration, be it student feedback or anything that needs fixing, that you sort of have your agenda or mind on? Is it called an administration? Can I use that word?
Yeah, I think you can use that word. I learned so much from the previous deans. I've been here 19 years. Dean Ranelli, Dean O'Keefe, Interim Dean Bostwick, and Dean Fountain. I learned from them. I was close to them. I was personal friends with them as well as work colleagues together. And so I know what they did well. And they helped to form me in what I'm doing well. And so I'm looking to try to do what they did well and then add what I've already been doing. So I've got things to learn, and I can learn from their experiences that I shared with them. Dean Fountain is wonderful at relationships. And he was wonderful with his relationship with me, and we will continue.
I forgot. So the name of the last dean, of the previous dean that just recently resigned?
Yes, is Dean Fountain. Yeah.
Thank you.
And he's a wonderful relationship builder, and I've learned some lessons from that, and that's an area that I really want to focus on internally and externally is to carry on the relationships and the visibility of the college in our community, internally and externally. So, it's less about fixing things, and it's more about taking what I've learned under the leadership of my previous deans and to build additional skills that they had and that I learned a little bit from, and then use my skills to carry forward. And remember, we're not really trying to create something that's totally different from what we have. I mean, we have students, we have faculty, we have staff, we have administration, we have internal and external supporters and partners, and so we're already doing things great. And so it's my responsibility to come in and go, how can I continue to help us do those things great, and where can we be even greater? It gives me chills, because I really, really believe that. I really want to do that.
All right, perfect. And I'm not super clear. I'm not super clear on how the process of changing deans work.
Mm-hmm.
Dean Fountain resigned, correct? Yeah.
Yeah. So chairs work for deans. Deans work for provosts, and it continues on up into the executive leadership of the university. I will be straightforward with you. I was asked to step into the position, and without asking for details, I knew it was the right time for me because of the experiences that I've had as chair and the 19 years of kind of building programs and relationships. I didn't ask questions. I said yes. That's it. I said yes. And so the provost has the prerogative to assign deans. The dean has a prerogative of assigning chairs and that sort of thing. And so I work directly for the provost. And as long as the provost wants me in that position, then I'll be in that position. And I believe that's the way it works. Okay. And so now I can step down if I decide to, if there are things that change in my life that require that I do something differently. I can certainly do that. But as long as I want to, I can stay in the position as long as it works for the provost.
Yeah.
Because again, he has that prerogative. He has that responsibility.
Is there, and again, this is purely sort of ignorant student.
You are not, listen, number one, you're not just a student. Number two, you're not an ignorant student. I'm telling you, I'm a student. I'm learning. All right? I don't know exactly all the things to do as a dean. I'm learning. So I'm a student. Okay.
So how does I guess, let me just ask, does there have to be a reason for resignation, or I guess I'm wondering how did Dean Fountain just decide, it's my time to step down, or?
I don't know the answer to that. I don't know if there has to be a reason. I don't know if a reason is given. I think that, again, that's the prerogative of the dean to make that decision that's best for him or herself. And it's also the prerogative of the provost to make the decisions that the provost believes is best as well. So, again, I wasn't involved in that. Yeah. And so it's just my understanding that each of them have a responsibility to themselves and to the position. And so that's really what I know about that.
All right. So any parting words of wisdom, favorite writers?
Oh, wow. That's an interesting question. Well, you know what? Let me give you a current book that I'm reading. It's called The Dean's List.
Who's the author for that?
The author is Dr. Matthew Waller.
What's it about?
Okay, so Dr. Waller has been, and he has just stepped down from the position, the Dean of the Sam Walton College of Business at the University of Arkansas. That's a big deal. The Sam Walton College of Business, right? The largest company in the world, in the country, and they've named the College of Business, and he is the leader of that. Again, he has just recently stepped down from that position. He's back in faculty. He's actually going to come here and be part of our program for our first College of Business Advisory Council meeting on November the 8th. Dr. Waller was asked to be the dean of that college. That was the college I graduated with my PhD from. And Dr. Waller was a young professor at the time I was a young doctoral student there. And so he was one of my mentors and one of my teachers and was one of the advisors on my doctoral dissertation, which is just a big research project to discover new knowledge. And so when he was asked to become dean for the College of Business, he looked for books out there that would help guide him, and he just felt like he needed further details, get in the weeds of things. And so this book is, from what I understand, is the first, it's information that he gathered through interviews and documents and saving his emails and really learning the budgets of a dean and learning the processes of a dean and so forth. He brought all that together and he created a notebook from the first 3 months of being dean, because he had not been a dean before. So he wanted to know, what is a dean, what do they do, what's the responsibility, and what's everything in their responsibility, what do they have to know? And so he did this. And then he shared it with some deans within the Southeastern Conference of Colleges of Business, and they started using it as a book that they would all read and they would discuss on maybe once a quarter an aspect of it. Well, somebody said, Dr. Waller, you need to turn this into a book so that it can be distributed to more people. So he did. He decided to. And then AACSB, which is our College of Business accreditation body, that we have that accreditation through the AACSB. They asked Matt to come and to please do some sessions about his book to educate some of their members, which are deans and associate deans, leadership in colleges of business. So I called him up a couple of weeks ago and I said, Matt, I'm having a College of Business Advisory Council meeting in November. Would you come down and share with them some of your experience of how you have gotten the Sam Walton College of Business involved with the industry and community? And he said yes, and I said, you know, Matt, could I also call you and ask advice on an ongoing basis? Absolutely. And I said, he told me about his notes, and I said, Matt, would you share your notes with me? And he goes, well, I wrote a book. And he goes, so he shared with me the book. So I'm now about 70 pages into the book, and I've decided I'm going to provide a copy of that to my our dean staff here, our chairs, and really anybody else that wants to learn something about leadership. But also, it's going to help me, along with my dean colleagues across UWF, to learn better how to be a better dean. You know, so at this moment, he's my favorite author, okay. Dr. Matt Waller. Is that okay?
Yeah, that works.
Good.
Went way over the time that we allotted. Is that okay?
We're fine. We're fine.
I think that's all I have. Oh, I did have one more question. Collaboration between the different departments. Mm-hmm. Is there any of that we can look forward to? Any plans to?
Yeah. So let me talk about departments which are within our college, and then across colleges.
Yeah.
All right. So yes, I'm a firm believer in that. I'm a firm believer in, we do so many great things. Let's take departments, for example. So in the Department of Commerce, just because it's my experience, We have sport management, we have hospitality, we have supply chain, we have marketing, we have economics. And marketing and supply chain have a lot to do with each other. You make product, you promote product, you advertise product, and then supply chain has to get that product in the hands of the customer. Otherwise, it ultimately has no value if it's just sitting in a warehouse and can't get there, right? So we are, and sport management and hospitality, they have a lot of overlap. You've got your sporting events. Well, then you have to have event planners and hospitality thinkers and managers that will help to carry forth some of that that event. So we see some overlapping in these disciplines, and we're beginning to identify kind of methodically. Let's look at our hospitality major and requirements, and let's look at our sports management, and let's see where we can gain some economies by having our students take meaningful courses together that could expose them to these different areas, but also help advance their degrees. So we're looking at that internally. I was just talking with Kelly Massey with our SBDC, Small Business Development Centers, and he's going to help, and already is, helping to create a business plan for our May Garden Center for Financial Literacy. So even with our centers of knowledge and excellence, we're leveraging our one center that has good success and skills to help our other centers do so. As far as university-wide in colleges, I have been working with the deans, and they've been great at giving me guidance now that I've begun as dean position, and in new at it. They're giving me some advice and coaching me, but they also have opened the opportunities for discussion about programs and how we can create some collaboration across programs, maybe with engineering and some aspects of business, where engineering students would benefit and business students would benefit. And then others are all the way from health sciences to our business leadership types of courses or programs. So yes, I'll be right there. Thank you. So yeah, that's I'm all about that because those competencies exist. Why don't we take advantage of working together at it? So that's how I helped build the supply chain program, was because I brought in 2 logistics type courses, but then the marketing degree existed. And so how could I look at the marketing courses and match the ones that are closely related to supply chain and then bring those together? And so I think we have a lot of opportunities to do that. And that requires a lot of relationship building internally and bringing people together. So thanks for your questions. Hopefully you got some good stuff out of it.
You have plenty of stuff. About 53 minutes of stuff, actually.
Well, I'm passionate about it. I'm excited about it. And I've really enjoyed the time that I've been working here. So thank you for speaking with me. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Oh, that's